Hello, everyone. Hello. Thanks for coming, everybody. This is obviously the Ward 2, 7, and 8 constituent meeting. My name is Dave Berman. I'm the township manager. And instead of having the commissioners draw straws to decide who would talk first, we decided to let me do it. Lucky me. So anyway, we want to get started. I handed out an agenda, and if you don't have it in front of you, somebody else might have it. We didn't actually have enough. We didn't know how many people would show up. And in fact, our assistant township manager, Amy Cuthbertson, is handing out what's left of those agendas. She's in the back there. So introductions. Ward 2, we have Cheryl Forsty Grupp. Ward 7, we obviously have Connor Quinn. And Ward 8, we have Jerry Hart. We have township staff and consultants with us this evening. Obviously, I'm here and Amy is here. We have Chief John Viola and Deputy Chief Joe Hagan from the police department. And we have Joe Celia with Director of Code Enforcement. And we have Chuck Faulkner, who is with Pannoni. And a couple of ground rules that we are kind of setting up. Want everybody to know that we're recording the meeting. It's not being broadcast live, but we are recording it so that folks can look at it later on YouTube and see what they missed, if there's anything that we need to cover or that they're curious about. We have a lot to cover. We put together the agenda to cover the topics that we hear about the most. If there are other questions that we don't get to or other topics that we don't get to, you can feel free to raise them at the end of the meeting. What we're trying to do is provide information to you and hear the questions and comments that you may have. But we know that these meetings can't go all night. So we are going to set this up with a hard stop. It's 6:35 now, so we're going to do a hard stop around 8:30, 8:35. So that gives us a good couple hours to get things out there and have a good back and forth. When there's a specific topic that you have a question about, what we would like to do is have those folks who have questions about topics ask those questions, and we'll do our best to provide those answers. And then once everybody has asked their questions about that specific topic and you have a second question, perhaps we can come back to you at that point. That way we're treating everybody fairly. So the first item that we would like to cover is the Pensy Trail. It's a project that's been around for years, that has been in design for many years. And we have Chuck Faulkner with Pannoni here, who's going to, I guess, step up to the podium and provide a PowerPoint presentation. This is probably going to take, I'm going to guess, Chuck, I don't know, 15 minutes? 10 or 15 minutes. Oh, by the way, while Chuck's coming up, if you do have questions, because we are recording the meeting, I think we're going to ask you to come to the podium so that we can get who you are and actually hear your question and have it recorded so that people are aware of who's asking the question and what the question actually is. So Chuck, come on up.
Hi everyone, Chuck Faulkner. I'm with Pannoni. We're the township engineer. You tell that to everybody all the time. Chuck Faulkner with Pannoni. We are the township engineer, and we were design engineer for the project here, Pensy Trail. What's better for recording? Which way? Yeah, yeah. We'll let you do that.
We lost the PowerPoint. That doesn't work. I can put it up on. Give me 2 seconds. maybe if I go back the way it was. I don't know. That's when it went out. All right. Maybe we're not doing a PowerPoint.
There we go. Okay, sorry to be this way, but let me try to speak up and go through some things here. This was a public presentation that was requirement of the grant, which the township had, and it was uploaded on the township website, and this has now been updated to reflect the final arrangement and the final plans and everything. So if I could just go quickly through some of the scope and the general aspects here. Again, extension of the Pensy Trail. It is runs, as most of you know, from Manoa Road down to the parking lot at Vernon Road. It's about 1,600 feet overall. It includes a bridge across Manoa Road that's 69 foot long, 10 foot wide, okay? Then there is that continues on either side with a 10 foot wide paved trail, just like the existing Pensy Trail, all the way down to the parking lot. And then also included is a underground stormwater management facility that's on the east side of the trail, roughly between West Langhorne and West Mercer Avenue. Access to the trail can see is from 3 points: Columbia Road, Lanark Avenue, and Vernon Road. And at Lanark Avenue, there is actually a, excuse me, at Lanark Avenue and Vernon Road, there are handicap access to. The project is funded by both PennDOT and the township. So PennDOT paid a fair amount of this project, or is paying a fair amount of this project via grant. Designing and permitting was completed by the township, and that's complete. And the contract is bid, awarded, and administered by PennDOT, okay? And they actually oversee the contract. Doesn't necessarily mean the township's going to have no involvement. They will. Bids have been received. There's a low bidder, Richard E. Pearson. They're from New Jersey. And one thing to note on the bidding process is PennDOT requires pre-qualified bidders. So they are vetted ahead of time. A notice to proceed, we're anticipating 2 to 3 months. They would be issued. And then likely right now, probably early spring or so, you might see some activity with regard to construction, layout, clearing, that type of thing. And as of now, the preliminary schedule is the work should be completed maybe late 2023, early 2024, but that is very much dependent on the bridge. The bridge is the key component that will take the longest time. So we'll probably have a better idea within the next few months of exactly what a more realistic schedule might be. And if you were involved in a project over the years, you might realize there was some other public presentation. There was one posted on the township website on the 28th of April. And then there was a couple Zoom meetings with the ward, with the people and ward commissioner, and some emails and other public outreach there. Okay, so let me move ahead and give you some ideas here. Come on. This is just an overall plan. I just kept it in here to give you an idea where everything is. Obviously, Pensy Trail is over in here. Sorry. Pensy Trail is over in the blue over in here. Okay. The bridge will be right here in Manoa Road. Existing Pensy Trail that was done years ago, all the way up from Manoa Road to the YMCA here. And part of the reasoning behind this, and part of what the public officials liked was the fact that, you know, the children and school kids in this area don't have to cross Manoa Road. They can take the trail all the way up and come to a safer, little less trafficked area, side streets, and get to the school. So there's a safe routes to school was a consideration. So, here's an aerial that depicts the trail, obviously in the white here, and gives you an idea of, obviously if you live in there, you probably can pick out your house and everything, but it gives you an idea of the proximity of the trail to the various roads and the various properties here. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the old railroad bed. And this is roughly, the trail is going to be roughly in the same proximity or the same alignment as the trail is right now. You know, there's a beaten path there right now. And for the most part, it's going to be back in that same location. And again, we're coming down Lanark Avenue here, or adjacent to Lanark. You can see the overhead wires here and the utility poles. That sort of gives you a better idea of where things are. As we come down, it veers over in this area here. And then let me just continue. And then coming down off next to West Langhorne here, and then behind the Lanark Shopping Center here, and connects to Vernon Road. And again, there is a handicap spot here and handicap access. And there'll be, let me back up here, there will be another handicap access up Fulmer here. And obviously, this is all township property, so, you know, it's very walkable from these neighborhoods here. All right. Just to give you an idea of the bridge structure itself, this is Manoa Road right here, okay? The yellow, or the gray, dark gray here is the bridge, okay? You have sidewalk on both sides. These yellow items here are the bridge abutments, basically, or they're retaining walls to hold back the earth. And you can see there's a picture of them here. They're just precast concrete blocks. The bridge is depicted here, and I do have some other pictures of that too. But that is 16 feet clearance on the bridge from the road. Okay, and again, it's 69-foot span. It is a pre-manufactured bridge. It will just be constructed and set in place, most likely in one day, is the game plan. And let me jump ahead here. Here's some pictures of similar type bridges in the area. This one happens to be over South Gulf Road, or I'm sorry, over Valley Forge Road for the Chester County or Chester Valley Trail, okay? A longer bridge, a beefier bridge. These two are a little closer. These are in King of Prussia. That is with the extension of the Chester Valley Bridge or Trail, and they're currently being constructed. I think this bridge was just set maybe about 2 months ago. And it gives you an idea of the configuration of the bridge, the height of the bridge. It has a little bit of curvature. What you're not seeing here in this particular picture is the fence. There is obviously a fence that goes on the inside of this bridge, as will be the same fence on the Pensy Trail Bridge, and obviously for safety. So let me jump ahead to a few pictures here of the upper bridge. This is the one that crosses the Chester Valley Trail up on South Valley Forge Road. It's a little beefier, like I said, than this bridge will be. Same configuration, though. It would be concrete walkway. There'll be a handrail, obviously a fence, and then, you know, just the remaining bridge structure itself. On either end, there will be a fence coming off the bridge and coming down to a point where the grade picks up a little more on either side. But that gives you an idea Again, 10-foot wide. Rail, a fence. Bridge is not meant for traffic. It's meant for pedestrians and bikes. So it's not a robust bridge like the bridge over Darby Creek might be, but it's simply meant for pedestrians. Let me jump in. This is a typical section down off of Lanark Avenue. And the reason we have that in here is obviously if you live in this area, you know about the stormwater and you know where stormwater goes. And part of this project, I shouldn't say part of it, but part of when we designed this project, we took that into consideration. We realized that there's a lot of houses here in Woodland that sit lower, okay? We realized the amount of water that comes down Lanark and kind of flows into this area. So what's happening here is you have a trail. If you're looking this way, like up the trail, you have a trail. On the house side, you have almost like a berm, although it would be very subtle. So it's meant to be higher than the trail, okay? And then everything drains across the trail to a swale and then down towards the Lanark Shopping Center into a stormwater management system. So the idea is this trail almost acts as a conduit. Anything that comes off of Lanark Avenue is going to get onto that trail and run down towards the Lanark Shopping Center into the stormwater management. Excuse me. And then I'll go through these quickly. They're a little bit detailed and cumbersome, but these are the actual design plans here. This is a property plan, shows the extent of the properties and extent of the project, property owners, and details. This here is that retaining wall that will be part of the bridge abutments in here. Like I said, it's a precast retaining wall. There's a fence on top of that wraps around and kind of makes up grade. Some tabulation of big quantities. This is Manoa Road going this way. This is Columbia Road up in through here. The township buildings over here. Just gives you an idea of the location of the bridge and the relative distance from Woodland Drive and Columbia and everything here. Same view turned around. There's the grade here down here Manoa Road. The bridge is sitting about 16 feet higher than that. This bridge has a high point over here, drains back, and then it's a continuous slope all the way down to Lanark Avenue. And again, it's meant to be handicap accessible, so there's a maximum slope that it can't exceed, and it's very subtle. If you note here, and if you're in this area, you can see there's two abutments here. Those bridge abutments are retaining walls here. And then there's some grading in through here because this does have to come up this area. Likewise, the other side is the same way. Some bridge abutments, some revised grading here. And also note that there is a sidewalk that wraps all the way around now on Columbia and comes up through here to another entrance to the trail here off of Columbia. And the idea was to keep everybody off of Columbia, keep them on the sidewalk because of the traffic coming out on Columbia and police vehicles. Further down between Rodmore and obviously West Wilmot, just an idea of where the trail is in relation to the property lines. These are your property lines over here, obviously Lanark Avenue here, and the trail's almost midway at this point between those two. Moving a little further down between Fulmer and West Mercer. Again, it comes back a little further off of the property lines. It's, again, following the same path, basically, that's out there now. It's meant to be the low point. And also note in here, if you see this dashed line here that kind of comes and wraps around, and you'll see it on the next slide also, that is the extent of the stormwater management system. So it starts here, and that it's underground, and it will go all the way back down towards the Lanark Shopping Center area. And last slide here, as you can see, this is, again, the extent of that stormwater management system here. The trails, this part right in here coming through. Down behind Lanark Shopping Center, you can see this is the new configuration that was out there now. This will be a retaining wall here just to level off the area, and then the trail will go through directly adjacent to that retaining wall and end at the parking lot here. So I think that's the last slide there. Yep, you go back. So basic overview. I'll hand it back to the commissioners, and of course, if anybody has questions, we can certainly address them.
Chuck, why don't you stay right there, because you'll probably help answer some of these questions. Why don't we start with the commissioners? And by the way, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all of your efforts and for explaining that so clearly, but I would rather hear from the folks out there.
And I would agree too. Thanks, Chuck, for
You're welcome.
that, and I'd like to hear from everybody else.
Maybe what I can do is turn around here. It might be easier.
Well, we need, actually, Chuck, if you have a mic at your seat,
Yeah, okay.
although they may need you to go through the PowerPoint, I don't know how it's going to work, but we have somebody right here coming up to ask a question.
Hi, Jean Angel from Tenby Road. I saw that there was a entrance from Vernon, entrance and exit. What about at the shopping center? Will we be able to get into that shopping center? Will there be an opening there?
There is no formal entrance into the shopping center. The township has an easement through that shopping center. Shopping center is obviously private property. There's an easement through there, and the easement's for the trail. Realistically, as people do today, you can walk down the slope and get there, but there is no formal.
It won't be enclosed. You will be able.
No.
We'll go with this gentleman right here first.
My name is Douglas Detour. I live in Woodmere Way. My question is about the bridge. How tall will that bridge be for access of trucks? The reason I bring this up is in Radnor, they have a Radnor-Chester Road Railroad Bridge, and every 6 or 8 weeks, there's a truck that just plows right through it and ties traffic up. I know I've been there because my office is around the corner. So are you going to have any lights, any indication this is like 14 feet high or 13.5 or whatever it is? And will the slope of Minot Road coming down permit adequate clearance?
The bridge is a minimum of 16 feet under clearance. So in other words, there's 16 feet from the road surface at the highest point to the lowest point of the bridge. Okay? That's well beyond what you see on any highway, the Blue Route anywhere. Usually they're 13.6 around there, and the requirement from PennDOT is that this is a pedestrian bridge. It's not as robust. It can't take any banging, anything trucks going into it or whatever. You don't want something to get stuck under there because it will damage the bridge. So that's why the height is higher.
Would you have a sign saying 14-foot clearance on either
16.
side? Or 16, I'm sorry, 16 foot.
I don't think so, because it's well beyond the minimum limit, but I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll pass. I had the exact same question. Okay.
Over here, thank you.
My name is Stephanie Sayers. I'm on Fairfield Road, Ward 7, and what I'd like to ask is, what are the projected maintenance requirements for the bridge and the budget considerations for that maintenance?
The bridge is a pre-manufactured bridge. It's steel. It's painted. It will need to be painted every so often, but it is painted to the standards of PennDOT, which are typically, it's not going to decay in 5 years. It's going to be a 10 to 15 year or more cycle. The biggest thing is salt. That really salt and de-icing materials and stuff like that. So We want to be careful when we put down anything on the surface of that bridge. Want to kind of be gentle with that. But like any other structure, if it's well maintained, it should last for a while.
The budgetary considerations, when they originally started to do the project, like all of our capital projects, they give it some good consideration. Given that the maintenance of the bridge is really limited to painting, I think we're talking about a 10 to 15 year outlier here, so we'll have to give that some, with the rest of our projects, and we'll get to it later tonight, we're doing our Parks Rec and Open Space Plan, and this is part of that Park Rec and Open Space Plan and part of the maintenance that we're going to be detailing in that plan, the future maintenance. So that'll be all considered as part of that larger program for all of our parks and rec and maintenance facilities. Thank you. Oh, and Brian Barrett's here this evening. Thank you for coming, Brian, our Director of Park and Recreation. Did you have something? Okay. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Excuse me.
Thank you. Angelo Capuzzi from Austin Road, 7th Ward. Chuck, are you using porous asphalt for the trail itself?
The trail is not porous asphalt, it's standard.
Okay, and I assume that except for the day that you're putting the bridge up, that Manoa Road will be open for traffic?
That's correct. There'll be some lane restrictions probably during the daytime when they're working on abutments and adjacent to the road, but overall the Manoa will be open until they're ready to set the bridge, and that's typically over a weekend.
Okay, and are there any areas identified on the plan for like contractor parking and lay down areas and things like that?
We haven't gotten to that point yet, but I think we, being staff, has some ideas and everything, and we're not going to use neighborhood parking if that's a concern.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, how are you doing? Keith Flutterman, 420 Lanark Avenue. I had the privilege of speaking with Cheryl before we started today, and we've also met with Chuck and Brian Barrett at one point. We're the constituents down on Lanark Avenue, the lower part that's squeezed between our back driveway and the retail area. I'm so happy to hear that you've added a retaining wall there because it feels like you've added a little more space to our area. Is that right to assume?
The retaining wall was always there. What sort of the benefit that we got from Lanark doing what they did was we were able to push that trail out a little bit further, a few more feet towards the shopping center as opposed to get it away from the properties. So that worked out well.
Thank you. Yeah, we've had three concerns repeatedly, which is the green space that we have there that separates us from retail, which makes us kind of unique compared to other folks along the trail. So we're going to be hopeful, and we're hoping to hear a plan about the adding more trees or some kind of barrier between our driveway and the trail itself, just because we're talking just feet of space between the primary public and then what is our property, and we haven't had fences back there before. We haven't had the need, but we're very close.
I'm gonna let Brian jump in, but I know we've talked about that numerous times. Number one, we've also talked with the owner of, the shopping center, Brandolini, about providing potentially some more trees there too.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's everybody's very excited about a bridge. I get it. Bridges are exciting. They're awesome structures, but we're hoping that there becomes a solid plan that formulates that we could tap into and feel hopeful about.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill Keeley, 36 Waverly Road, Haverford Town here. Is there stair access on the east side of it? So there's a footpath that goes up now for the kids walking towards the Lanark,
Yes.
the shopping center. So around the bulkhead, are there going to be stairs on that side of it so you don't have to cross Manoa, go up Columbia Road, I think it's called, and then you get up onto the trail? It defeats the purpose of the bridge because you have to access to get up from there.
That issue was discussed early on with the township, with PennDOT. The issue with stairs is it's a 16-foot vertical climb. That amounts to something like 40-something steps. And it's one of those things that it's not included in the project. It's something that maybe we can look at down the line, but quite frankly, I'm not sure a lot of people are going to want to climb that far up the steps.
It's just from a safety thing, so the
Yeah.
kids have to go up that side when you're walking on East Manoa, going up onto the bend. So, and it would be kind of replicate what they have in SEPTA for the high-speed line, how they have those switchback stairs to get up onto the platform. Train. So it's just about design into the bulkhead. Again, it's just going to put more people across Manoa Road as opposed to just climbing up onto the bridge and crossing.
Understood, and we also talked about maybe taking a look at some of those intersections and trying to upgrade some of the pedestrian stuff through there to make it a little safer too. So that's something we can look at once all is said and done here.
Peter Puglianese, Lawson Avenue. Two things. I guess one is a suggestion for the township to think about working with the shopping center and the YMCA on the other side on a striping plan for sort of a safe transit through the two parking lots on either side. I think with the YMCA, we have the advantage that we actually own that property and lease it to the Y, so maybe we have some influence regarding, their desire to extend the lease arrangement beyond the current lease. But maybe the shopping center owner would also appreciate that it would provide some, visual cue for pedestrians and bicyclists trying to get through that parking lot. Question for you, Chuck, is there were 4 rain gardens installed along Lanark Avenue by the Darby Creek Valley Association a couple of years ago. And Brian, I thought you said they were going to be removed, but I couldn't tell for the life of me by the drawing. So the question is, what is going to happen to those rain gardens, which are accepting water from Lanark Avenue, not from the area of the trail?
Can I take that one? Excuse me. We did include some funds in the budget. There were some rain gardens that exist that are in need of additional maintenance and upkeep. And there are, I think, additional rain gardens planned for portions of the trail that's going to be installed. In either case, in this year's budget, we included additional funding to do some additional maintenance to try and preserve as many rain gardens as we possibly can.
So those rain gardens are staying in?
Some of them will be removed because there has to be some grading done in those areas, and some of them are in the footprint of that stormwater management system too. Not to say that they can't be replaced, but they will have to at least initially be removed to do the work on the trail.
Darby Creek Valley Association put a lot of effort and a lot of money into those. Can you have some details about what you're proposing and how that will be offset by what's going to be installed?
Sure, I can,
Yeah, I'll connect with you, please.
Maureen Kennedy and Lanark, 400 block of Lanark Avenue. I have a question about the back drive that runs behind all of our houses. Do you know if this trail is going to butt up against that back drive?
I'm sorry, you're asking where the trail is going to be
Yes.
back through there?
Yes. I mean, if you follow the bed from the railroad or if you go up further up the trail, it runs, I don't see that it's going to butt up against the back drive at all. But we've been told over the years that it was going to.
No, it will not be up against the driveway. I think it's somewhere in the vicinity of maybe 13 to 15 feet off the driveway.
Oh, okay.
So
Thank you.
it's a little further
Is
than
that in
just,
writing? I know this is stupid, but is that in writing somewhere?
it's on a plan.
It's on the plan. Do we have a copy of the plan?
We'll take a couple more questions on the Pensy Trail, if there are those, and then we can move on to some of the other items that we need to discuss this evening. Amy's headed over to the back right.
Hi, Helene Conroy Smith. I live in the 2nd Ward. I noticed that you had a 10-inch paved trail, which is 10 inches about this size, on the Manoa Trail. And as much as I love that we're going to have a trail, why aren't we just keeping it a dirt road? Like, why are we then putting only in a small 10-inch? Oh, it's 10 feet? All right, I'm sorry. I thought it was 10 inch. I'm sorry. All right, 10 feet is much better. Thank you.
Hi, Alexis Pasternak. I'm on the 600 block of Woodland Drive. So all of this is right behind my house. I'm excited about it, but at the same time, I'm just curious about the berm. How high is that going to be? Because we have several neighbors who, over the years have put in fences and they swing out. So maybe this is a dumb question, but will they have, be given notice like, hey, the berm is going to be this high, be ready, because, my fence goes in, so I'm not worried about it, but I'm just sort of thinking about the other neighbors and letting them know.
Not a dumb question.
Okay. I don't know how high a berm goes. I had to look up what that was.
I use the word berm. Maybe that's a little too aggressive. It's more of a subtle slope that's going to go up and meant to be, the area by the fence or by the gate is meant to be slightly higher than the trail.
Right.
So, and as I explained, the trail is at a constant pitch all the way down towards the Lanark Shopping Center. So we want to make sure it doesn't breach that area, that water follows all the way down to the Lanark there and gets into the system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last question. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Spoor. I'm in the 7th Ward on Arlington Road, but I like to go walk on the trail. I'm just curious, are there any plans for the future extension going towards Paddock Farms, like going towards Darby Creek? I've seen that on the various proposed maps and things.
There's this trail is on the Circuit Trail, which is identifying almost the whole right of way on the Pensy Trail going down all the way into like Darby and Upper Darby and Lansdowne. Having said that, there's some challenges extending it either way. Going across towards Paddock, you quickly run into being landlocked beyond Paddock Park. And part of that goes through the west course at Marion Goff, crosses Ellis Road there. And houses have been built in such a way that we would have to get easements to actually get to those spaces. Having said that, it's still on the Circuit Trail, and the idea is as we build the momentum, making these individual segments, that we'll look into ways of not only going that direction, but possibly crossing Westchester Pike and going down into Upper Darby, like behind Upper Darby High School in that area.
Okay. If it's okay with the commissioners, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and we are going to ask Dr. Hart to talk a little bit about the Brookline Park Master Plan, the Park Rec and Open Space Plan, and we'll have a little discussion about that.
Okay. Just before I start, there's some giveaways. There's some cookies up here. There are some reusable cloth grocery bags over there. in the back, there's a lot of information that the EAC put out about rain gardens, solarized heat pumps, a variety of things. And Peter Puglianese is here from the EAC. I'm sure he would be happy to give you any information after the meeting. When we do the Brookline Park first, just a brief overview of the property. It was actually 5 years ago this month that this odyssey began. We had a meeting with the school district who informed us that they plan to sell the property at Brookline. And for those who don't know, the Brookline School was built in roughly the 1920s, closed in the mid-80s. After that time, the school was used as a senior center and as a daycare center, as well as a place to vote. About a year and a half after the school district told us this, we acquired, or basically the school district transferred the property to the township. The township was considering moving the library to that location. That was another year and a half long process of ultimately deciding, for a variety of reasons, not to move the library there. Subsequent to that, an ad hoc committee was formed to see if there were other uses for the building. For the most part, we ran into dead ends. The one possibility turned out not to be possible because of deed restrictions that the school district had to impose on the property. So ultimately, the decision was made to take the building down, and which was a little over a year ago, and expand the park space there. This past spring, the township hired a consultant to help us look at the property and to help with this process of deciding what's going to go there. There's been a steering committee set up with members of the Parks Board, from the Parks Department, some local neighbors, the Penfield Civic Association, and I've also participated in that. There was an online, or continues to be an online survey for community input, which has gotten actually a tremendous response. And there have been 2 public meetings thus far about what to do with the park, and a lot of input. The consultant has met with 4 different community groups, the enclosed neighbors, a senior citizens group, middle school students, and sports groups. Oh, the Penfield Civic Association. And so we are at the point of, again, the last public meeting was in December, and we had a steering committee meeting last night. There will be another steering committee meeting next month, and then another public meeting is expected in the end of March, March 27th, but there is another public meeting before. Right. Oh, in early April. Okay. The thought, I think the input that we've gotten thus far is that this is not to be a destination park. This is to be a community park. It's been a place that I know I live a couple of blocks away from. It was a place where you went with your kids to throw a softball, to throw a frisbee. The maybe 6 and 7-year-olds play soccer there on Saturday morning. We wanted to make it a better green space. I think it's an exciting opportunity both for the township and for the Parks Board. It's an unusual situation in a close-in suburb to have an opportunity to expand your green space. And so that's what we're looking to do. This is a place where people can come and sit and enjoy themselves. I wouldn't expect it's going to be a park that people are going to be driving from other townships or necessarily from other parts of the township. It's a place that hopefully most people will be walking to. We expect to present to the board the proposed plan, or the Board of Commissioners, a proposed plan in April, and finalize thing in July, I believe, is the expectation. even, so what we're going to finalize is a draft of what we hope to put there. The process of building the park will probably be a several-year process. We're hoping if we can get this ahead, the draft done by July, that we can start to do some things in the latter part of the summer so that it looks a little better than it looks now. But again, we're not going to have a brand new park there by the end of the summer. It's going to be a several-year process to get that done. Some of the things, I know people have objected to the fencing. Doesn't look great, but we feel because of Arlington Road is at the end of the park, we certainly don't want a ball rolling into the street and kids chasing it. So that's not the final fencing that's going to go up, but it needs to stay there for now for safety reasons. And we'll open things up for questions.
I'm reading directly from the Brookline Park Master Plan Public Opinion Survey, and it's the general demographic. It's the first question, and it says, what is the name of the municipality you live in? Haverford Township, Radnor Township, Marple, Springfield, Upper Darby, Lower Merion, or other? My question is, why are we asking input from non-residents on how we're going to spend our tax dollars here?
So the question is there because we want to get a sense of who is responding. So if you're responding from outside, otherwise, if we don't ask where you're coming from, we don't know where the response is coming from.
Well, see, I think this is the problem with just online surveys. Not everybody's online. Not everybody lives on social media. Will you provide the breakdown of who answered? Because you said there was such an overwhelming response with the survey. Are you going to give us an accurate account?
Yeah, I think it's been published, and if it hasn't, we can certainly put it on the web.
And the overwhelming number of responses are residents, like well over 95%.
That's great, but I would love to see the statistics.
Sure, we can get those.
And I think it's a legitimate question.
Yeah,
sure.
All the committee, if I can, all the committee meeting information up to last week is on the website. So we talked about how our discussions went, what was said at the public meetings, what the results of the survey were. But the question you answer, I can get that information.
Yeah, that's great, but I don't feel that people who don't live in this township should be guiding us on how we're going to be spending our tax dollars because they're not stakeholders in the township. We are. Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Connell from the 500 block of Kenmore Road. When I was up at the creek and we had the drafts of all the parks, that there were like 48 parking spaces, 48 or 50 parking spaces there in those. What I'm hoping is that if they're still on the plan, and this is from me, I'm not speaking for a group of people, but I thought the idea really of green space was to try and reduce our carbon output. And I'm hoping that it's a walk-to park and that they don't use it all the 48 or 20 or well, how many ever parking spaces that are there so that green space can be a true green space and not increase the carbon output into the neighborhood.
Yeah, Chris, just so, I think you were at the meeting, so one of the plan itself takes the parking lot that did exist inside the park and put it to the outside to make more green space. And actually, at the moment, if you consider that there were 25 to 27 spaces inside the park when the school was there, it's about the same. That's not saying that we couldn't cut down on the numbers. I think the concern is with the park is not to bring people there, but certainly there's still going to be soccer games there on Saturday morning, which brings people to it. And there are going to be I think Penfield Civic right now does a movie night twice at the Grange. I think they would probably like to do one of them at Brookline Park and one of them at the Grange. So for some occasions, there's going to be more.
And I understand that, but like the Grange itself, there is no.
Well, and the neighbors are not particularly happy about that. So I mean, yeah, I understand. I hear your question. So, but it's a balancing act of, I think also not to overwhelm the neighborhood if there is something there and there's no place to park. So.
Hi, Alan Polsky, 500 block of Kenmore Road. I was just wondering what is going to be, how soon is that chain link fence that's up there now going to come down? Forgetting the one on Arlington Road, you can leave that, but when you walk, it's just really, it's a horrible sight. Every day I walk the dog, and when I walk up Arlington Road, I have to go across some sign that is laying down now on the pavement. I guess it was a detour sign, but it's been there for about a week now. So any plans on removing most of that fence, because it's old and dilapidated?
Well, with Brian partly, but I think the issue is how much, I mean, I think we definitely want to leave something on Arlington. It's just a safety concern, and I don't think we necessarily want to spend a lot of money on a fence that's not going to be eventually what's there. So I think probably some of it can be taken down.
In conversations with the township manager, we think that one of the first steps might be to put in the sidewalk all the way around the park initially. And with that, we can then address some of the barriers to Arlington Road to keep it safe. And on some of the concepts, some of those barriers result in a lot of trees, a lot of vegetation. Some of them is a fence around the whole perimeter. So, but as Commissioner Hart said, we don't want to be spending money that we're going to then take down later. So we are sensitive to the neighbors, have been looking at a site that has looked like a construction site for a while now, and we're going to try to do everything we can to keep the process moving so that we can, make the site look a little more aesthetically pleasing.
Hello, Chris Shelton, 1300 block of Edgewood Road. And just in terms of the parking at the park, my kids have participated in the recreational soccer, and it is very useful to have had that parking area that the old school had. So I would just, support having some provision for parking there. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Ryan, 500 block of Cathmere. I just wanted to say kudos. I mean, let's just make it the park that it always was. I mean, the school was there forever. My grandfather was actually principal there for 25 years. When that school was knocked down, everybody was so worried about it. But the truth of the matter is, that's a beautiful space that hosted many Halloween parade, and the people around here are going to continue to use it. There's nobody coming from out of town to use it. There will be the soccer people there to play with it, to play on the fields. We'll walk our dogs by there. We'll play Frisbee on there. It's not going to change much. I think further meetings are a little bit crazy. Let's plant some trees. Let's put some benches out there. Let's put the sidewalk around, and let's move on. I mean, really, the questions about this is about a park that's going to stay the same, and it has been the same. As the people in the 500 block of Kenmore know, and Sagamore and Strathmore and Edgewood, we know who goes there already. Nothing's changing. So, I think it's much ado about nothing. Thank you for beautifying that park.
Hi, my name is Deb Stone, and I live on Mill Road in the 7th Ward. And one of the nice ideas is that finally there would be a walkable park where you don't have to cross over Darby Road or Manoa Road or Eagle Road to get to a place that you can walk to. So will there be just a simple crosswalk right by across Arlington to bridge the 7th Ward to the 8th Ward?
We are trying, where the consultant has been reaching out to PennDOT. I mean, Arlington Road is a state road, so we can't do anything there unless we get permission from PennDOT. That being said, there's been multiple, in my 5 years on the board, multiple meetings with PennDOT about concerns about speeding on Arlington Road and pedestrian safety. So we're hopeful that they'll be open to the idea of some type of crosswalk. Some warning.
Great. I have one more question, which is it a done deal that it's going to be a sports-oriented park? Because there are lots of us in the neighborhood who would like to have shade and trees and places where people can really use the space without a sports game going on or attracting a lot of people who have to drive to the park to attend the sports game. Yeah,
the only sports that or organized sports that would be there is what's there already, which is 6 and 7-year-old soccer on Saturday morning. So it's not something, it's not going to be a baseball field. Will still be space for kids to play soccer, young kids, but that would probably take less than a quarter of that's what's there now. And it would take probably, the plans that I've seen, that area would take up maybe about a fifth or a quarter of the park. So mostly it would be a space to walk and also for younger kids, the activities.
Okay, thank you.
Peter Pugliese, Lawson Avenue. I'm sure you're thinking this, but it has not been implemented in Haverford to date. If you have parking and it's infrequently used, consider putting in interlocking pavers, grow grass on it, mow it, so that it doesn't look like a parking lot the 98% of the time that it's not full of cars. And it's permeable and doesn't increase runoff.
Stephen Pierce, Strathmore Road. There's a basketball court in the corner of the park. Is there plans on renovating that at all, or are you just leaving that kind of alone for the whole thing?
Yeah, so there's not a final plan. What was discussed so far, what has been discussed is that court would probably not stay where it is. But there would not be maybe a smaller court somewhere. That could be a multi-purpose court, that other things could be used, other activities could be played there. Okay. Great. Okay, we'll move on to the one comprehensive plan. I'll talk about the comprehensive plan first. You want me to do the open space plan? Okay.
Please.
Okay. It's actually easier if we do the comprehensive plan first.
Have it your way, Dr. Hart.
Okay. It's one.
No, I understand.
Yeah, one sort of follows from the other. It's just a brief review on comprehensive plans. It's suggested that towns do these about every 10 years. Haverford last did a complete one in the 1980s, so we're somewhat overdue. There was a limited update in 2009. In pre-COVID, so that was 2019. We started the update. There was an online survey at that time, which again got about 3,500 responses. As we were planning our public meeting, it was March of 2020, and COVID hit, and everything was put on hold for about a year. Last year, we did finally have another public meeting as well as a Zoom meeting to get input. There has been a steering committee that worked on taking that input and working with a consultant to update the township plan. I should mention just what a comprehensive plan is. So a comprehensive plan is a blueprint for the township, things to look forward of things that we should consider. Comprehensive plan is not, has no legal binding on the township. So anything, if there's suggestions in the comprehensive plan, for, let's say for zoning changes, those are things that after the plan is enacted, the Board of Commissioners holds hearings and votes on and studies the plan and says, well, we should do this or we shouldn't do it. Many of the things that were, at least some of the things in the 1980 plan, one of the suggestions was a need to update the library and add more parking. So things don't always follow from the comprehensive plan. 30 years later, we're sort of getting to that. The steering committee did come up with a draft plan, which the Planning Commission endured probably the summer and fall of 10 meetings. Yes, Angela's holding up his hands to get more input. And the result of those, the input that they got and their thoughts, they communicated with the Board of Commissioners and said, we think this should go back to a steering committee to look at our comments and decide what we should do. And that, I think we voted last month to do that, to put together not the original steering committee, but some members of the Planning Commission, some members of the Board of Commissioners, and some township staff to look at what's been done thus far. I think some members of the public have interpreted that to mean that we're going to start all over again. Can't say that that's not going to happen, but I think it's unlikely. I think that we would think that we've gathered a lot of data and that we want to look at what we have and then see if what we need to change and if we can go forward with it. Assuming that happens, it would go back to the Planning Commission for probably one meeting before it comes to the Board of Commissioners. So I'll stop there and take questions. Well, that's a surprise. Angela, you never had this happen. All right, well, we can go on then to the park, oh, go ahead.
So I don't know what questions to ask because I don't really know what the comprehensive plan is encompassing.
Okay, so what the comprehensive plan, the idea behind it is that you're looking at where the township is now, getting input from residents about where we should be going in the next 10 years. You know, should we be doing something different with our neighborhoods? Should we be changing something different with our zoning laws? Should we be doing something with the roads? And suggestions on what changes that should happen. And so that basically, again, the feedback that we've gotten from the community, and not surprisingly, is people like Haverford Town, and like most things about it, there are some things that they would like to change. They would like to not be stuck in traffic for an hour on Eagle Road all the time. They would like to be able to cross Eagle Road. There's concerns, unlike some of our neighboring townships that get a lot of tax revenue from businesses, Haverford depends on our residents, and it's, you know, our taxes, we would like to see that not have to keep going up. Are there things we can do to encourage more businesses in town to either encourage more or to make our businesses even more successful than they are? So those are some of the things that are in it.
Hi, I'm Beck Wagner from Rosewood Lane, and I've been following the Planning Commission all along, and I was wondering, when will this steering committee be formed? Will it be looking for public input, or what comes next is basically my question.
Yeah, I think, so it's partially, so to answer your question, it hasn't been totally formed. We sort of have an idea of some of the commissioners from the Board of Commissioners, some of the members of the Planning Commission, and some township staff would come together and look at the comments and see where we are. Whatever came, I mean, there have been a lot of comments received from.
Absolutely.
So we'd be looking at all those comments, trying to come up with it, either saying we need to start all over, which I think is unlikely, but could be the outcome, or saying let's incorporate things, let's look at what's there and changes, and then it would come back out to the public.
Okay. For everyone's input, the comprehensive plan is on the website, and you can look at it, and it's 100 and some odd pages, and it was being sent back because of, what's the word? Form and substance to be reviewed. Form and substance, because it's very difficult to follow, and the survey is in there, and it's questionable whether the steering committee actually read the survey, because it seems to target Haverford Road, in my estimation, but that's because Haverford Road is my backyard.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jim Brown on East Manoa Road. The zoning board's approval for the library remodel project permits us to build the remodel, but we can't get a use permit until the township provides additional parking. Is that an issue in the comprehensive plan?
No.
Is there any information about the township's planning for where parking might exist?
I'm going to, later in the meeting, I think Sherry's going to address the library. We'll do it after this.
Hi, Helene Conroy-Smith. I was wondering, I've been also following the comprehensive plan. Will the form and substance of all of the comments be placed out to the public? Will the public have an opportunity to view some of the input that was added in after the survey? And will you consider redoing the survey, since we only had, I think it was like a little more than 3,000 residents respond to the survey? And from what I understand, the number one issue in the survey was traffic in the community, and that was way past on the low end of what was being addressed. So I think that that's important to note.
Yeah, just in response, I can't answer, we haven't met yet, so I don't know. Okay, moving on to the park recreation and open space plan. This is it's another comprehensive plan but it relates to parks and rec. I don't know, the analogy was that the comprehensive plan looks at the township from 30,000 feet. This plan looks at from 10,000 feet, just that looks at our parks and recreation. We've had two public meetings thus far. There's another online survey.
There'll be another public meeting scheduled. It hasn't been scheduled yet.
The idea here is, again, to sort of be looking at what do we want to do with are there different things we want to do with our parks? Are we serving the residents well with the current parks? What things do we need to do to expand, if at all? It's pretty important for us to look at what we have and how do we maintain it and what's the cost of that. I think that's a big driver for this, so that we look to the future, we make sure that we're budgeting enough money to take care of our parks. I think one of the things that certainly came through in the other comprehensive plan is that people love the park here. It's one of the reasons people move here. We want to see them get better. So this plan, again, we've hired a consultant. We're doing outreach. We've been having meetings, and Brian, when are we?
We expect that we'll present something to the board probably early summer, and then depending on the comments from the board and the public, go back to the final iterations, and then hopefully get a board approval sometime during the later summer.
Okay. So that's basically my update on that, but I'll certainly take questions. Great. We will move on to the library.
I'm very pleased to say that we are actually going to be undertaking the renovation and expansion of our library, which is one of the centerpieces of the township. This is something that the commissioners and the library board of trustees have been working on for a long time. On February 6th, during the work session meeting, we will be given more information formally about the library, including updated cost estimates. So if you're interested in hearing about the library director and the president of the board present that information, I invite you to that work session. I can say that what is going to be happening is we're going to have the whole library will be gutted and renovated and expanded to make it fully ADA compliant, to provide more community spaces, to provide dedicated spaces for various constituent groups that have kind of like, they have their spaces in our current library, but they're like piecemeal. So we're going to have in our new renovated, expanded library, a dedicated space for senior citizens, a dedicated space for teens, because we have many, many children who come to the library after school for the various programs. So there will be a space for them. There'll be dedicated space for the young children, those who are just learning how to read, and those who are expanding their reading skills by checking out all those books. There's going to be a complete renovation of the first floor of the library to open up that space and to push back some of the desks, like the checkout desk and the reference desks, push them back to the periphery to create even more space for our residents as they come in to look for books or to get help with research questions. It is going to be a library for the 21st century and something that we can be very, very proud of. Someone did ask about the parking. Right now, the library does only have 17 parking spaces. We know this. And one of the requirements in order to get a use and occupancy certificate is that we acquire more parking, and the township is actively looking for more parking nearby. When we have something more finalized, I'm sure there'll be an announcement, but that's about all I can say right now. But we are looking actively for that additional parking. Let's see, anything else? We're hoping that, or let me step that back. While the library is being renovated, all the services, and we're looking to about 20,000 of the books will be available to us in satellite locations, and we should know very soon what those are going to be. Again, that's not been finalized, but it's pretty close. And so you can look for that announcement later. The library is fully committed to continuing to provide all the services that we are used to, all the programming, especially for children and seniors, because the library is a place, a resource for all of us. The place where the library will go during the renovation will still have workstations. So if you need to use a computer, that will be available to you. All the books will go into, a portion of the collection will go into storage, but you can still ask for those books to be brought forward. So the library's not disappearing. It's just kind of, shall we say, filtering out more into the community until it can come back to this beautiful new space that we will have. Hopefully construction might start later this year and then be done in about 18 months?
15 to 18 months is the estimate at this point.
Which
Once
very
it starts. Once it starts.
Yes, once it starts.
And
Once it starts.
Sherry, during that time, I know that everybody who lives on Mill Road, they will be impacted by it. So I talked to Phil, and everybody there, the board there, and the staff there, and me will meet with the people that live along Mill, so they can be aware, and we will keep them informed of everything that will be going on during that time.
And there will be meetings led by the library staff and the library board to fully inform and be transparent to the community about all the various stages in this very exciting development for us. So if there are any questions, I guess, turn it over to you all.
I didn't say before, my name is Lucia Schlossberg. I live, I'm in Connors Ward. I live on Alston Road, and I just wondered, has the township made available the floor plans or drawings or renderings of the library, and will they be doing that?
So we're anxiously awaiting those documents. The design team has been working on that. We'll have, as Commissioner Forstey-Grupp mentioned, an update at the February work session. I don't know if they'll be presenting floor plans, but if they do, we'll certainly make them available.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks for having this meeting tonight. My name is Jim Hazelton. I live in the township. And the question I have, it seems like everybody's anxious for this library to be built. I know you put a lot of time into a lot of years. Where are we at on a dollar figure at this point? Because there's a lot of rumors floating around that this thing started at 10, 12 million and we could be over 25 million, which kind of freezes people in their tracks. And the question is also, was there feasibility studies done? And possibly with an expenditure of that much money on the taxpayers, who are a lot of people struggling, especially the seniors, to pay their taxes, should a referendum be done, maybe to put this on the ballot and people could vote on capping this thing and how much they want to spend for a library, or frankly, any other big expenditures. We're in favor of it, but everything has to have a budget. Thank you for your time.
Why don't I just, okay, in answer to the question, and I was pointing at our finance director and assistant township manager because I can't remember what the money was that we were carrying the budget. Was it 18 million, 18.6? Well, he asked the question. Yes. Thank you. Okay, next question.
I just wondered, I live on Mill Road, so the library is close to where I am, and I can get there by walking. But in terms of the parking, I know this has been a difficult issue, but is it the township property, that little alleyway that's behind Chenzo's and everything, accessible township property, or is that privately owned? It would be great to have a cut through that fence so that people could walk.
I think that's owned
straight from the middle school, and even with parking being so difficult, has there been any consideration made to having more middle school parking on the other side of the middle school, closer to Eagle Road, and having all those, or some of those spaces be metered spaces accessible for the library, if people could then easily, cross over and go through an alleyway? Just wondering.
To the best that we know, that's owned by the stores there. I guess the land, that they're responsible for the land behind the store. I know that the store that I have, that we're responsible for our land there. So I would assume that that's the same over there.
I'm not sure if I understood.
The alleyway.
Alley?
Yeah.
I think that's behind the parking lot there?
Yeah.
That's township land?
No.
Oh,
I think it's the stores. The stores, to the best that I know. That would be the stores there.
Okay. Thank you.
A question on the library, Todd Hall, Country Club Lane. Do we know if there's a lot going on at the library, a lot of good things? Will there be a movement back to in-person meetings for the library board? I understand it could just be due to convenience that it's still on Zoom, but you have to register for the Zoom. So I'm hoping that maybe that, folks involved with the library from the board and all from the commissioners could encourage that for the future.
I will certainly share that with the library director and the president of the board.
Hi, Dave Girboni. I'm in the eighth ward. I'm wondering if you've given any consideration to making the new library a genuinely 21st century establishment, one that promotes electronic borrowing, electronic reading, a smaller and more compact footprint, physical footprint, off-site book storage, because again, if I'm borrowing a book on my phone, I don't care where it sits, because when I go pick it up, it gets transferred to a pickup point. So, maybe that's the real 21st century library that is not going to cost $18 million to create, nor require 20 more parking spaces.
You're absolutely right that people are borrowing books, electronic books, and using various streaming services that they have available through their library card. But a lot of people walk through the doors because they want to speak with reference librarians who know how to do the research and find the information that is sometimes very difficult to find given the plethora, it's just a maze of information out there. And the librarians are trained staff who know how to weed through and find you the answers that you want. So a lot of it is just the people resources that you get when you walk in that door and their expertise. But I do hear you that there is a lot of stuff that is available to us through the internet. It's not all just books. Part of what the new library will also do is provide many more more community spaces so that community groups can meet in the library. Another thing that the renovated library will provide is tutoring room, so that children and other people who are needing extra help on projects can have spaces that are safe and in public view to have tutoring sessions right there where all the resources are available to them. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Marion Luke from Media Avenue. Just in response to what you said, I understand I have a lot of kids and grandkids, all electronic, but there is a large senior citizen community. I'm married to one who doesn't even believe in cell phones. So going to the library and reading a real book is a necessity in our community.
Say eliminate, I said reduce.
Just another part of this, though, a significant amount of the cost is to upgrade the facility. There's no elevator or functional elevator. There's ADA. It needs new heating. A lot of the cost of what's going in there are things just to upgrade the building that's 30 years out of date. So I hear some of what you're saying, but a lot of this cost would be there no matter what we did.
As long as you're expanding your, like in the 21st century, other direction.
Yeah, sorry, I can come up. Matt Robleski, Langhorne Avenue. Thanks for the meeting. So you mentioned it's going to be gutted, right? And plans are still in process. So is there any expectation about a change to the footprint or the physical structure, taller? Is it basically the building going to be the same, just renovated? Do we know?
The building is going to, some of the building is going to, it's about 5,000 square feet being added. It's going to be added a second floor extending over some of the parking lot that exists there now.
Our houses are selling from 800 to 1.2 million on a regular basis.
Well, excuse me, I don't mean that we should be having an argument here, but voicing just opinions. one thing is that we also should recognize that a library, which is a non-commercial space and a safe space for all ages from, 0 or 2 to, 102. And also, even though there's an increase in electronic information and communication, the interpersonal interaction and also even a quiet study space for some students to go with their laptops, especially with a lot of people who are doing a lot more education online, would have a nice quiet place with an internet connection to go to. So and in terms of the full scheme of things, the library hasn't been renovated for many decades, and it won't need to be renovated for many decades to come once it's completed. So, thank you.
Is this the last question? And then we'll move into the police update. Thank you.
Yeah, I really welcome the renovation of the library. I've been in meetings where the roof actually caved in. Just to give you an idea, we need to renovate this library. Let's just come together and get it done.
Thank you. Why don't you come up? That'd be great. We actually, yeah, we can turn that around now without worrying about the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Viola, Chief of Police. I think a lot of you know who I am. I've been a longtime township employee. So they have asked me to address a few of the crime problems we've had in the township, which I do every month at a commissioners meeting. I read a crime report to give an update to everyone to what the major crimes and what trends we're seeing within the township. And what we have seen in the past couple of years is probably that's been going on, not just here, but throughout the region, is motor vehicle thefts from motor vehicle and motor vehicle thefts. And when I say thefts from motor vehicles, people, even though I preach every month up here, lock your cars, many cars are left unlocked, keys are left in the cars. When the keys are left in the cars are usually gone. So these groups come in, we make multiple arrests, but the wave keeps on coming. So that's one of our big problems. I'm sure you've seen in the paper the catalytic converter thefts. We've made multiple arrests on that also, but there's obviously money in these catalytic converters for the minerals that are in them. The thefts occur during the day. They happen down in the Kohl's parking lot, Manoa Shopping Center. A car will pull up, someone will slide under the car with a sawzall, cut it off, and they're out of there in a couple of minutes. So if you see something suspicious, call us, call 911. And people think that we don't want to call 911. It's an emergency number. That's our dispatch number. So feel free to call that number anytime we get any kind of call over that somebody answers that phone, obviously 24 hours a day. The other high volumes that we're seeing, and we've seen it for quite some time now, are retail thefts from our stores in the Quarry Center. We have met with the managers of those 3 big stores and their security staff. They indicated to us that their hands were tied somewhat because of corporate policies, that they don't want to see their employees injured because confrontations happen a lot. But they have been very receptive to what we talked about. We have made multiple arrests down there, and you see those who look at social media and the newspapers, we put all the videos that they give us of the shoplifters walking out of the store, we put it out daily. So you see them pop up all the time. We want their faces out there, and we want to push back as much as we can. Because believe me when I tell you, it costs all of us, when we go to a giant Kohl's or Lowe's, we buy something, those thefts cost us money. We know that. And I think that I was asked to address the new parking app that we have. I heard a couple of moans there, and I understand. I feel your pain. So we went from the company was called Flowbird. We had the kiosks there. the kiosk continually broke down. We had to call the company, they would come out and they would charge us. So we realized it wasn't doing us any good. It wasn't as adaptive to what people are seeing now. Granted, there's the senior citizen faction that really has a problem with it, and I understand that. I'm in that category too. But what we went to is Park Mobile, and you can get that with multiple ways you can load your meter. The meters on the street, you can still use your quarters. We also added meters to all the public parking lots for senior citizens. Now, we can't tell who's a senior citizen. Our parking people go up there. We would hope that people would have the courtesy not to park in a spot that's reserved for a senior citizen where they can still use a change in those meters. So there's phone numbers you can call. You can do it on the app. What am I missing, Joe? You can text. And you can text it also. So there's 3 ways you can do it. I was in Lower Merion last week. I used it for the first time. It took me a couple of minutes. I had it loaded, but it took me a couple of minutes to put the car in my car. Once you load your car in, that's all done. So when next time you go, you just have to add what you want to add. The best part about it is if you're out somewhere, either a restaurant, you can add more time to it because it's going to tell you your time's running out, so you won't get a ticket. Now remember, it ends at 6 o'clock. It's free parking after 6 o'clock and Sundays. Some of the questions are, why don't we just have free parking? It's not, we break even with what we have on the meters. The meters are there to keep people from parking there all day. And this is what will happen. A few years ago, when we used to have free parking during the holidays, we found that it was killing the businesses because people would park there all day and there was no back and forth. That people couldn't park to close to do their shopping. So the meters, it's minimal for the township as far as income, but it helps the businesses keep that flow going for them. So, we try and move forward. We know the difficulties with it. We've had big signs out there announcing it. We probably could have done a better job of easing into it, but we were up against it because of contracts. So, by the time the decision was made and we had to cut the cord with the old company, we had to move quickly with it. So, understanding that it can be cumbersome for people until they get used to it, it will be a plus as we move along. So, I think that's it. I'll take questions. And commissioners, if you have anything you want to add to that, or
I just have one thing, because I've been asked this a lot over the past week with the crime at Lowe's and Giant. Has any of this been up because of the ban on the plastic bag ban? Because that's what I've been asked, so that's why I'm.
As far as what kind of
the crime, because they walk out of the stores with just the shopping carts, and they don't have. Because they don't get bags, they don't buy the bags, so I wasn't sure if the.
Gotcha. We don't track that. It's kind of difficult. We have talked to some of the security people that they think that may have something to do with it. But Giant has instituted a security measure on the carts. So if you're walking out with something that hasn't going through the register, the cart will stop. A lot of times they're lifting it up and walking out, but it does help. There's always ways to get around, but it does help. It's sad that the world we live in, this is going on, but it's crimes on the rise, and we've had questions that these are people who don't have money to buy food. They're not stealing food. They're stealing high-priced seafood. They're stealing diapers. They're stealing baby powder, baby food, stuff like that. They're selling it on the streets. So it's just what we make arrest. There's drug issues involved. There are people with long history of being shoplifters. So you get an occasional one. It's a local, but there is laws, and we do charge them. So yes, sir.
Todd Hall, Country Club Lane. The parking situation and having spots for seniors. Based on what I saw in the Lantern parking lot, and I might not be positive or correct, were there any handicap spots taken away to create those? Because I felt like I saw one of those handicap spots. There
are no senior citizen parking spots in the Lanark lot because that lot is never full. So we didn't feel a need to put them there, and we've had some scofflaw issues there, so we're trying to get that addressed before we move forward with that.
The wrong lot. The one that's near Westgate Pub.
Oh, that's the Manoa, Westchester.
Like there was no ADA parking removed to
We are required to have ADA parking. We have taken nothing away, no.
Chief, I have one question just about like the traffic in our neighborhoods right now. That's become pretty bad as far as people blinding stops,
Yes.
not signaling. I mean, it's kind of interesting to me that we have so many more cars than we had 30, 40 years ago. People park them haphazardly on corners, wrong direction. We have more people staring at cell phones, earbuds in their heads, and it's dangerous. I'm walking around, and a lot of it's dangerous. At the bottom of my street, at the 500 block of Cathmere, nobody stops at that stop sign. They're going down to the Mexican restaurant, they're going to the dance club,
Studio, yeah.
and they're cruising through there. I'm just wondering if, I don't want to say that we should add these masks, set up the cops, and ticket them all, but just maybe a little bit more presence every once in a while instead of like way back in the 7-Eleven a lot. A couple of guys just a day giving warnings down there. Stop a lot of that.
Okay.
It's just become more of an issue.
When we get complaints like that, we do address it. We'll make sure that's taken care of. I got it. I got it. I got it. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. That is illegal. Right. Uh-huh. Well, honestly, we don't ask the officers to go knocking on doors unless we get a complaint. I agree with you 100%, but we'll address it. We'll put it out to patrol. Okay.
I actually have a question too about Chatham Park and the traffic there during school drop-off.
What traffic?
Specifically, Glen Arbor Road, the 100 block. I heard talks of that being made a one-way. Then I was told it was shut down because we don't have neighborhood support. I have over 50% of that 100 block signed that they are so ready for something to be done there.
I'll address that without taking that sort of your paperwork there. Remember, when we make a one-way street, that applies to the people who live there also. So if you have a one-way street, you have to go the other way and come around. Well, it sounds good now, but every time you come home, you're going to have to circumvent that. And we have to get the commissioner involved. There's a lot that goes into making traffic changes like that because it affects so many more people. We know there's a serious problem down there. We kind of had it addressed a few years ago with the flow, but every year, maybe a new principal comes in, they try to address it. I'm trying to say this the correct way. Parents just want to go to school, park the car, walk the kids up to the front door while there's teachers standing there helping it. That's the problem because there's so much traffic, and after COVID, more traffic hit because the school district asked, drive our kids to school because we're worried about children, but it never went away.
Sure. Every other block leaving the school is already made a one direction during school hours. So I know this isn't impossible. When I call the school, they tell me to talk to you guys. When I call you guys,
we have to do that.
Yeah.
Let me get together with you after the meeting. We can talk
okay,
more.
but carpool or one way, either.
All right, we'll talk
it's
more
a safety
after the meeting.
thing.
Understood. Dave, there was somebody over here. Please.
Stephen Pierce, Strathmore Road. What's the update on the mail thieves? I know there was a little chase down in Caricon Drive a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I just want to know what the update on that was.
We made a big arrest on that very recently. They're being charged through the Postal Service and for us. They have dropped off a little bit, but it's like all these crimes that I talk about, the catalytic converter thefts, the vehicle intercept, they have an ebb and flow for some reason. But the most recent arrests we had were people from out of state. They were from New York, one was from Philadelphia, and what we have found, and I don't know how, 300 and some pieces of mail, Joe, in the car that was recovered and finally mailed. It was all Christmas stuff. It was finally mailed by the postal authorities about 10 days ago after they got the information they needed. So, yes, we've made arrests, but ironically, I just think they have keys, and there are other ways they use different things to get the stuff out, the mail out, but when they clean the mailbox out. We haven't seen a dramatic increase. It has dropped off somewhat, but I can't promise anything because we do make arrests, but it's just a lot of money involved there. So, if I could just say one more thing, you're next, is scams. I just had a call recently from someone who I know that he got a call that his grandson was in a serious car accident, and they got him on the phone, and he was whispering, and he knew his name and everything. He was smart enough, he knew it was a scam, but I had one about a month ago. Another friend of mine's mother-in-law, she lost $15,000. She went bank to bank, and they just kept on going with her because they got her on the hook. But just, if you think it's a scam, if it's too good to be true, then it's not true. So, you know, when you get phone calls like that sort of stuff, it's not happening. Nobody's giving you money, and nobody's got your kids or grandkids arrested because there's other ways you'd be notified, not with a phone call like that. So, somebody else. Yes, thank you.
You know, I live over in 2, and our bread and butter, you know, in this town right now is like the Quarry Center. We're getting a lot of the mercantile tax from them. And so, you know, I would like to see if it's possible to have more police presence over there, since we are seeing a lot of, you know, more crime over there. I do notice the Kohl's, there's a police car sitting outside the Kohl's, but they're on to that, you know, no one's really in there.
That's
you know. I know it's a deterrent,
sporadic, yep.
But, you know, I see it, and I don't walk over there anymore because it's really not safe. You know, there were some homeless people over there as well. They were like badgering, and I'm from the city, so I'm accustomed to it. But I really do think we need like more of a police presence over there. That is our bread and butter, and I do, you know, I stopped shopping over there. It's not safe. I won't let my child go over there because it's not safe, and it's a shame because that place was put in there for us to use, and I loved Kohl's for years, and I really do think that that's something that we want to do. And I've grabbed somebody in there. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I love this town. I've been here a long time, but you know, we can't deal with crime, and I can't be putting myself out there when I have, you know, kids. So I'd like to see more of a police presence.
We are there continually. I think we have a patrol officer who rides that district. She's right there in the corner. That we spend a lot of time then on calls, one, but on patrol also. Obviously, we have a big township. We have to dedicate ourselves to Manila Shopping Center and other business districts, but I understand completely what you're saying, and we will do our best. Whatever.
Just Joe Hoban, 7th Ward, Hampton Road. So just to build on what this woman was saying, you know, we've been talking about parks and trails and libraries improving in town. None of that matters if you don't stop this crime right away. That high crime will kill any neighborhood. You know, her children are afraid to go to the shopping center. That you know, is this crime, you know, this trail that we're building goes right up to Kohl's. Is that going to, how are we going to police the crime if it starts leaking down that trail? So this needs to be stopped now, or none of this other stuff we talked about tonight matters.
Listen, I agree with you. We do our absolute best, unless we put a policeman standing in each store, which we're not going to do because of manpower. And the stores have to have a commitment also. And corporate policies are one thing, but it affects us. And I agree with you. I mean, that's a beautiful shopping center down there when it started, but with a lot of crime coming. Once the word gets out that nothing's going to happen, that's why it continued to rise. This is why we brought the managers in and talked to them. In fact, I have another meeting scheduled, and honestly, they do agree with us, and we are taking some measures, surveillance measures with them that they're going to pay for to help stem this tide a little bit. So
Chief,
I agree.
Chief, yes. I've heard in surrounding towns they have guards at some of the giants there. Mm-hmm. Have the giant here or at Lowe's thought about guards?
kind of, they don't like that look. We do have a security person down there, they occasionally, but they don't have a full-time person. I'm sorry, somebody else? Gene, go ahead.
Yeah, another issue with the Corey Center is right in front of Panera and Chipotle and the ice. There's always like 3, 4, 5 cars
they're picking
there
up food
with
to
their
go, yes.
flashers on.
They're picking up
Flashers
food
on,
to
and
go.
it's such a pile up as you try to pull through or come out. It seems like they should either create a little cutout for those people, or that should be policed, because it's really dangerous.
We'll take care of it. Deputy Chief is taking notes as we're speaking, so.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I don't go over any of those stores anymore either, because in Lowe's, I used to go all the time to buy things for the house. There's needles in that parking lot all over the place. The druggies are in there doing their drugs, and then there's needles all over. It's not safe. And then I went into Kohl's to do a return at Christmas time, and I was just telling the girls, I was totally shocked. I guess I'm naive. This girl comes in. She has one of those things, when you get something that has a sensor, they have to take it off. She pulled one out of her pocket, took it off from the coat, put the coat on, and ran right out the door. And I'm looking at her like, are you kidding me? And nobody stops them.
Correct.
I'm worried that these stores are going to close, and then where are we going to go? And then that brings down our value of our house.
I agree with you 100%.
It's just upsetting.
But, it's not just Haverford Township this is happening, just so you understand that. It is,
I've been here 29 years. Never, ever did I hear sirens like I heard the last 2 years. It's all day long, every day.
we like to blow our sirens more than what it is, so.
I just wanted to have a reality check, because I actually go down to the Quarry Center to go shopping all the time. I've never noticed any needles. Is this like a serious, is there like a huge problem, or is there a problem that has to be addressed?
It's a problem that has to be addressed.
Okay.
I don't want to downplay anything anybody's saying. I understand it.
Right.
I see a change in it. We all see a change in it.
Okay.
We want to address it the best we can, but there are limitations to what we can do.
Okay.
You understand that? Yes, Mike. Hold on, Mike. Hold on.
I have lived in this township since 1980, 1967. I've been a volunteer fireman.
Microphone.
I've been a volunteer fireman since 1981. The sirens, if the people would turn off their stereos, take off their earplugs, and recognize that these gentlemen blowing those sirens are trying to get to your house where somebody is having a heart attack. If you would just use a little courtesy, you see a red light coming, you hear a siren, then pull over and let that vehicle go. And if we ever did that, maybe you wouldn't hear quite as many sirens. And I support the police 100%.
Mike is a fire police at Oakmont Fire Company, so he's out there a lot directing traffic, and he's been in a lot of fire where the car's not paying attention. So, thank you, Mike.
Kristen Harvey, 39 Yale Road. I just had a concern about Orlandi Dance Studio right there near the library. Most people seem to double park along there and drop their children off. And it's very hard when you're making that U-turn on Darby. When you're coming from Yale, you have to make that U-turn. Also from Mill, you see people almost hit them. I have a heart attack every time I see these kids jumping out of these minivans, dashing through these cars. So if someone could take a look at that, maybe.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
We could open it up. We could open up to any other questions. Those are the main topics that we wanted to cover. So if anybody has other concerns or issues that they want to bring up, go ahead, come on up. Sure.
Russ Bellata, I'm down on Lewis Road. I want to thank the gas company for repaving our streets. Really nice job. Two things that came up though. Last night, yes, we had a lot of heavy rain. We had a lot of heavy rain last night, and the block between Meadowbrook and Lewis on Spring, there seemed to be a new flood area that I noticed. I just noticed it, and like I said, we did have a lot of rain. I will keep an eye on it. I'm not overly concerned right now, but if anybody wants to follow up with me, feel free. And the other thing is, the streets were repaved. We need 4 inches of curb if we sell a house. Did they keep that 4-inch mark when they repaved the street? Is the question.
They are required to televise the area that they're resurfacing. So if you've found an issue, you should point that out to us. But Public Works, as the contractors that are working for the utility companies are going back to do their overlay, Public Works is out there looking to make sure that they're getting back to where they should be. However, we also rely on you.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you every single curb is exactly where it was, but that's what we do.
My curbs were fine. I checked them, and it was just by thought I checked them. But I did hear other people complain, and I don't know if they checked their curbs as well, or they just estimating by looking at it. Because 4 inches, when you look at your curb, you can spot it real easily. You can spot when it's not. So, yeah, just putting that out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to explain what all that stuff is in the back, if anyone's interested. And want to give a shout out to all the volunteers, fire companies included, but people that participate in the township committees, like my environmental advisory committee, Jean Angel, who runs the tree tenders. There's a lot of community activity, a lot of volunteers put in a lot of time. Some of the things that you see in the back are things that are available to the community, like we put in 70 rain gardens in the last 7 years, free to homeowners. So if you're interested, take a card. There's a workshop at Recreation, shout out to Recreation, who hosts all of these workshops. So we've got rain garden workshops, solar workshops, heat pump workshops. I don't know, I'm forgetting stuff, I'm sure. So, you know, continue participating and take advantage of it.
Thank you. One last question, and we'll wrap it up.
On Upland Road?
Upland Road.
I'm just a little concerned about the parking on both sides of our street. School buses are going very slowly.
100 Upland.
Fire engines actually have to slow down. People have driveways, but they're not parking in them. I don't know. Now, I know we went a few years ago with the speed bump. Removed. But, you know, is there any way we can get parking on one side of the street?
Yes, you can, but keep in mind that the residents, I think it's 80% of the residents have to agree to that. It is tight to get through there, I agree with you, but we don't, once an ordinance is passed, it's been that way for so many years, we don't just go in and wholesale change it because it affects so many people. So we leave it up to the residents to get together, get some papers together and get 80% of the neighbors to agree to it. And then they would talk to the commissioner and rescind the ordinance.
I know they had tried it years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Either make it one way.
Well, one way isn't really the right answer. I think I agree with you because some of the other streets only have, in your same neighborhood, only have parking on one side. And it is difficult to get fire trucks down there. I agree 100%.
What's going in the Amazon place? Is anything going in the Amazon place?
Amazon is going to go into the Amazon place. I had a conversation at the end of the year. They were looking at a couple dozen stores that were in progress. My understanding is the store up in Broomall wasn't as successful as they had hoped. I don't know that to be a fact, but they were looking at it strategically from a business perspective. And let me tell you, it's really difficult to talk to somebody at Amazon, but I I have another meeting scheduled, I believe, I want to say the 30th, but I can't recall when the meeting is to get some more information on that. But they haven't said they're not going there. They've just been slow to make the next move.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.